Welcome my witches to my wonderful magical book reviews. I'm your host, the City Witch UK, and today we're going to be reviewing DIY Animism, your personal guide to animal spirits, written by the wonderful Lupa. And before we dive into this book, guys, I just want to take a moment to remind you all that anything I say in these book reviews and in my videos are my own personal thoughts, opinions and experiences based on what I noticed as I worked my way through this book. So I've already read the book from cover to cover, so I'm in an excellent position to tell you the pros and cons of this book. And my hope is that by watching this video and book review, you will be able to decide whether this is the right book for you in your practice and on your magical journey, saving you valuable time and money. So without further ado, let's dive into this book review and see what it's all about. We're going to start by taking a look at the back of this book. Deepen your relationship with animal spirits. From the author of the groundbreaking Fang and Fur, Blood and Bone, A Primal Guide to Animal Magic, comes the new edition of a book that redefines the concept of neo-pagan animal spirit work. First published in 2008, this 2020 release keeps her original material while improving it with updates and annotations. Join Lupa as she explores animal spirits beyond the big, impressive North American birds and mammals. You'll learn how to create connections with animals you may never have thought of, work with animal spirits in your everyday life for your benefit and theirs alike, and even learn how to make the last animal card deck you will ever need. Free from dictionary entries, streamlined without tons of prefabricated spells, and full of material based on Lupa's decades of experience, DIY Animism is the ultimate guide to deeper, more personal relationships with the animal spirits in your life. And there we go. So we will begin by taking a look at the contents of the book. So one of the important things that I'm glad they kept in this book is you get the original 2008 introduction, but then you also get a updated introduction for 2020. So my copy of this book is the 2020 edition, but originally it was written in 2008. Now, since then, Lupa has gone on this magical, fantastical, animistic journey, and many of the things that she said in this book has changed and transformed and evolved for her. So the new introduction talks to you about where she is in her practice now compared to in 2008 when she first wrote this book. And she mentions how she's added things into this book. There's annotations and quotes and changes, and there's definitely things that are different for her now than they were when she wrote the book. So I appreciated that she kept the original in and then updated it with a new introduction to let you know where her journey has led her to. And then we dive into the chapters. Chapter 1, Rant On, some of the problems with neo-pagan animal spirit work. So this chapter is all about cultural appropriation and theft from other cultures, sources, and various different shamanic techniques from around the world. Now, typically when you read an Animal Magic book, they always seem to want to take it to shamanism. But Animal Magic, true Animal Magic, is working with animals magically. It's not the same as shamanism. So mixing the two, yes, there are some lines that become blurred. We know that in different areas of the magical community. However, you do not have to be a shaman to practice animal magic and vice versa. And you do not have to be a witch to want to work with animals and connect deeper with nature. Those things are not necessarily the same, and they don't have to be. So she talks about breaking down your practice and recognizing where you've gone wrong, bad advice and information you've picked up from books that were written in the, sort of between the 60s and 80s. Typically, they were books written on Wicca that passed themselves off as witchcraft books, and we know that they weren't. They mixed a lot of things into the books that were from other cultures that were stolen, whitewashed, and obviously incomplete or flat out wrong information. So she talks a lot about that and how to break down your practice, how to remove things from working with animals that is just flat out wrong, and where to go for true good information. So that chapter was a great opening for this book. Chapter 2, starting at the source. So this is foundations that she lays in order for you to build up into your practice. So she talks about where she started, how she started in animism and working with Animal Magick and animal spirit work, and then she kind of shows you how her practice evolved from there and talks you through the various steps and stages and experiences that she's had. And it's a great look into her as the author, things that she's gone through and how her practice has grown. And it also gives you insight into where to begin your own journey with Animal Magick, which I appreciated. Chapter 3, some animal spirits you may not have considered. That chapter, chef kiss. It was absolutely fantastic. It opened my eyes to so many different animals that I had not even thought to work with. And I will go through some of those in a bit, guys, because it's one of the positives I want to talk about. But honestly, there was a lot of animals that I just had not even tried working with, that I didn't even consider to be animals, things I hadn't thought of. So that chapter was a true eye-opener and really takes a deep dive into what is an animal, the different species of animals out there, the different categories of animals, and how to connect with them. So that chapter was definitely one of my favorites. Chapter 4, the last animal card deck you will ever need. And she is not kidding, guys. That chapter was also a favorite of mine. And the fact they followed on from each other was not a coincidence. This book is laid out extremely well. And if you want a book where you've got a lot of practical things to do, this is definitely the book for you. And I will show you what I did there. But in chapter 4, she basically walks you through making a companion oracle deck of your own that will match a tarot or oracle deck that you already have that is animal themed. Now, one of the biggest things she talks about there was when you buy an animal deck, so be it a tarot or an oracle, or maybe you've got one of each and you use them together, and you're using them to help you identify an animal spirit that wants to work with you for the year or for the next couple of months, and you pull a card from it and you end up with, say, a tiger. One of the things she points out is nearly all animal decks on the market right now have the same animals in them. So she actually says this funny line where she goes, lions, tigers and bears, oh my. And she's right. I actually have 5 animal decks in my collection. I pulled them all out and every single one had lions, tigers, bears and wolves. And the thing is, if you are pulling from 2 decks and you end up with a tiger twice, you're going to think that that is a sign the tiger absolutely wants to work with you. But actually, both decks have the tiger in it, so the odds of the tiger coming out is higher than, say, a frog if you've only got the frog once in one deck you own. So I definitely like the way she pointed that out. She also pointed out how limiting it is to work with a tarot and oracle deck that is not inclusive to all animals. And actually, many of them, she said, are unbalanced. So, you know, you'll have too many land creatures and not enough like fish and creatures that live in oceans or rivers or ponds. There is almost no decks out there that have creatures that live underground. She talked about how with birds, it's always eagles or hawks or falcons. But what about the common pigeon or the lonely little robin? You know, there are a lot of animals that are excluded and just not in the deck, which means it's very limiting when you're trying to connect with an animal spirit and figure out what is trying to come through to you. So she actually gives you a technique in that chapter for creating your own deck of cards that will help you break it down further so that you can use it as a companion with whatever deck you already have. And I'll show you mine in a minute because I actually did do that creative exercise. Chapter 5, everyday animal spirit work. So this is how to incorporate animal spirit work into your everyday practice, work to small degrees with your animal spirits, and actually start building your practice so that they're an active part of your spirit team. Chapter 6, animal spirits and chemonosis. I think I'm saying that right. So that chapter was all about animal spirit work and how to evolve your practice and how to deepen your practice. So it kind of takes it to that next level. So she builds you up, gives you the foundations, teaches you how to connect, teaches you how to identify your animal spirits, bring them into your everyday life, and then take it a step further. So you start to dip your toes a little bit into more serious intermediate stuff at that point. Chapter 7, magical shapeshifting with animal spirits. So shapeshifting is included in this book, and I want to take a moment to point out that shapeshifting is something that is found in cultures all over the world and doesn't belong to one specific culture. So therefore, it's not cultural appropriation or breaking any rules at all for you to include shape-shifting in your practice. There are many different versions of shape-shifting as well. I recently just finished a fantastic book on werewolf magic, and you shape-shift with werewolf energy and connect with your animal inside of you, which isn't necessarily a wolf, by the way, and you learn to shapeshift into your were creature self, and that was fascinating. So in this, it's specific to shapeshifting with animal spirits and actually going on spirit journeys with them. So a little bit of going over the hedge and spirit work here on a deeper level, which is why I said by this point we're starting to go into intermediate level stuff. Chapter 8, using spiritual techniques in, I'm going to try and say this word, nobody come after me because I can't pronounce it, therianthropathy. I think I'm saying it right. I'm probably saying it wrong. It's spelt Therianthropy. Therianthropathy. I'm probably saying it wrong, but I'm sorry, guys. So this is about using techniques that she discovered that, again, kind of deep dives into intermediate level stuff. And that chapter is actually really difficult to describe without you reading the book. So actually Google that word and that will give you an insight into what it is. But it's techniques that you can incorporate in your animal practice that is really useful and helpful if you want to take it that step further. Chapter 9, ask not what your spirit guides can do for you. So that chapter is all about if you really want to be an animist and an advocate for animal rights and you work with animal spirits, you have to do your best. So when we talk about working with nature, we talk a lot about cleaning up the environment because that's just really good for the spirits and for yourself. It's good for the soul and it means you're helping the environment. So in that chapter, she talks about helping animals by joining animal conservation teams, donating your time or your money, spending time talking to younger generations about cleaning up the oceans, not littering. If you see litter when you're having a picnic, pick it up. Don't wreck things out in nature that belong to animals. So don't destroy a bird's nest because you're in a temper. Don't break a beaver's dam. Don't walk on things where animals are living there. It's their home and you're wrecking it. Just be more mindful in your practice and what you're capable of that's within your capabilities. Try your best to work with nature rather than against it. So that was quite an insightful chapter. And then chapter 10, creating your own spiritual system. So this is where she gets down to the nitty-gritty of everything you've just learned. How do you put it into a system that works for you? And how do you design your own animal practice that is unique to you? And that's the core of this book, guys. If you want to develop an animal magic practice that is completely unique, free from cultural appropriation and your own practice, this is the book for you. And that chapter just brings it all together nicely and shows you what you need to do next. Then there's a little afterword, the future of neo-pagan animal spirit work. So this is the bit that she added in where she believes the direction things are going in. So that was kind of the 2020 update. And then we have a few appendixes at the back of the book. So Appendix A, animal-based non-profit organizations. So these are recommended places you can go to if you really want to do the real work and get out there and help and be a part of it. Appendix B, all-purpose gentric guided meditation for spiritual work. So this is a generic meditation that you can use when you've identified an animal spirit you want to work with and how to connect with that animal, which will help you go over the hedge. So she's written it in a way where you can connect with any animal that you believe is coming through, or you can perform it and see what animal naturally comes through to you. It is your choice. Appendix C, are we just splitting hairs on I'm going to try and say that word again. Therianthropy. Oh God, I can't say it. I'm going to give up. So on that and animal spirit work. So are there a difference between the two, or are they the same thing? So she gets a bit philosophical here, goes into the nitty-gritty of it and talks about the differences and the pros and cons to help you understand where you sit. Appendix D, deep ancestral animism. So mixing in ancestor work with animal magic and getting to the root of a certain animal species, connecting with the ancestors of that animal. So we know the wolf is the ancestor of the domestic dog, for example. So connecting with the wolf first, building your way up to connecting and building your relationship with the dog, and actually going through that kind of family tree. So how that can deepen your practice. And then Appendix E, my frank appraisals of animal spirit literature. So this is a list of books that she has owned or read at one point in her life that are out on the market, some of which are very popular. And she actually breaks them down into whether they are good or not, and her personal thoughts and opinions on those books that are currently out there that are guiding you in animal magic. So usually this is the point where I would go through the book and show you pages. However, guys, this is literally just a book of information. There's nothing pretty to look at. There's no demonstrations, diagrams, doodles, none of that. It's literally just a book of information. So it'd be better for me to just talk to you about this book at this point. So the positives. One of the major positives in this book is it is packed full of experiments, exercises, journal prompts, creative projects, things to actually do. So if you're creative and you like to actually do things rather than just read about it, then this is definitely the book for you. There is a couple of meditation ideas, but the main meditation is in the appendix at the back, and that one can be adapted in any way you like. So you can use it to go on a journey with an animal you've already connected with, or you can use it as a way to connect with an animal that wants to come through naturally to you. So there's two ways to use it, and I've used it both ways successfully. Through this book, Lupa will successfully help you develop and create your own unique animal magic practice, one that doesn't commit cultural appropriation. You will use techniques in this book, such as shape-shifting, and you will be able to use those techniques to connect with animals in new and exciting ways. Lupa talks about the possibilities of working with more than just living animals. And this is the bit I wanted to talk to you about, guys. You will discover how to connect and work with dinosaurs, with prehistoric creatures, with extinct animal spirits, hybrids, and domestic and barnyard animals, and considering your own pets, so things like cats and dogs. And this is the one that I really had not thought about, you will connect with microscopic spirits. And I was just like mind blown. Like, I didn't even think of that, guys. I have before connected with mythical creatures, obviously, since I do dragon magic. I have worked with a couple of extinct spirits. I tried to connect with the dodo. That was very interesting. And I have worked with pets as well as the generic animals that we know, like lions, tigers, and bears. But connecting with barnyard animals, that was interesting. Connecting with hybrids, that's something I'd never thought of. And extinct animals, prehistoric animals, dinosaurs, you know. But the microscopic spirits, that just blew my mind. So there is a lot to choose from, and she talks about all of those different types in this book, as well as bugs and insects that live underground and in soils, things that we can't necessarily see unless we have a microscope. So she provides you with so much choice in this book, many options for animal magic and different creatures that you can connect to. It was just fantastic. The book is packed full of exercises and ideas to try, but my favourite of all was the chapter where she discussed how to make your own oracle deck as a companion to existing animal tarot or oracle decks that you use to help you identify an animal spirit that wants to work with you. And I'm going to show you the deck, guys. So this is what I ended up creating. Now, she does actually give you a website where you can use a oracle size card or a tarot size card, and you add your own pictures on and words, and then they will print and create the deck and send it to you. But I actually just printed out images that I found on the internet that I liked. I added the keyword to it, and then I sized them so they were all exactly the same, as you can see. And then I literally just printed them out, laminated it, and cut them out. So it was cheap, it was simple, and it took me maybe about 3 hours of my time. So this is what she talks about. She talks about actually having cards that talk about the environments and cards that are added to a deck that talk about the dinosaurs or mythical creatures. So that if you pulled, say, a dinosaur card, and then out of an animal deck, you say pulled, I don't know, let's say the cheetah card here. So this is from one of my animal decks. You know that you're working with a prehistoric type of cat. And then you can meditate upon that and do some research and maybe use a pendulum to identify which prehistoric cat. You could also use a pendulum on a pendulum board to find out a kind of time period where that cat prehistorically would have existed, which can help you break it down even further. So this is why she was saying it's quite important to think about environments, location in the world, because if your deck only has a tiger in it, it doesn't necessarily mean the tiger's reaching out to you. It could be that a lion is reaching out, but because it's a cat and the tiger is the only cat card in the deck, that's the card that came up. Or maybe it's just the domestic cat, but again, because the tiger is the only card representing cats in the deck, you might think tiger, but actually it's a domestic cat that's trying to reach out to you. So this is about helping you break it down further and help you. So here we have the cards that I chose to include for environments. So we have burrow, we have stream, desert, coral reef, woods, cave, glacier, swamp, volcano, underground. So do you remember how she said there are very few decks out there that talk about creatures that live underground? So I added a card specifically for that. So I know I'm probably looking at, you know, maybe possibly a rabbit because they live underground, worms, you know, ants, something along those lines might be trying to reach out to me because they live underground. We've got lakes, we've got a forest, we've got a jungle, we've got rivers, mountaintops, coastal, the beach, the savannah, marshlands. We've got a farm, because remember, we've talked about, you know, barnyard animals being a possibility. We've got cities and urban areas. So this might be pigeons, rats, mice, you know, things that might reside within a city that can survive there. We've got the ocean, got a pond, we've got a waterfall, got North and South Pole, so creatures that live in colder climates. And then I did a house for domestic because that represents any creatures that you might bring into your home. So maybe, you know, snakes, dogs, cats, rabbits, gerbils, guinea pigs, you know, hamsters, things along those lines. Got the sky for bird like creatures that fly in the sky. We've got marshlands. And then this is where we added in some extras. Now, bear in mind, I'm a witch, guys, so I'm going to go the extra mile. So she said to include dinosaurs, which I did, but then I also went with dimensional beings. So this card for me represents fairies, dragons, unicorns, mythical creatures. You know, it kind of represents beings that live in alternate dimensions to us. Then I work with the Infernal Divine, so I added demons because why not? And then for the sake of balance, I added in angels. And then here we have just generically mythical creatures. So if it's specifically a mythical creature, great. But if I get the dimensional being, it might be something like an alien. It might be a light being. It might be a Leo, it could be anything along those lines. So I added those in just to give me a full spectrum, but you obviously don't have to add those last ones in. You could just choose to add the dinosaur one so you know that it's a prehistoric creature. So the idea is, I'll just pop them to one side, that you would say shuffle the deck and I don't know, let's say you pull the cave card, right? And then you get a snake. You know it's a type of snake that lives in a cave. That helps you break it down to the exact type of snake. And if you got then the prehistoric as well, you know it's a prehistoric snake that like to live in caves, dark places. So it's about helping you define what animal is exactly trying to reach out. If you got the woods and then you got the snake, you know that it's a snake that lives in the woods. So here in the UK, we have two types of snakes. We have adders and we have grass snakes. So I know it would be one of those two if I got that. Whereas if I got, say, let's say the coral reef card, I know it's a snake that can swim, that can live out in the ocean if it wants to. So I have to look up snakes that can live in the ocean or snakes that live in the coral reef. What comes up? And it will tell me on a Google search, and then I can meditate and see if I'm right and if that animal is trying to reach out to me. So that's the point of this. So you're not just saying, hey, I've got a snake animal spirit, or, you know, this says cobra on it. Oh, it's a cobra. No, it could be any type of snake, but by breaking it down to the environment, you know, so the desert, it would be a snake that lives in the desert. And there's certain varieties of snakes that might live there, but the cobra might not be one of them. So it's just about doing that, guys. So this was honestly a great choice and something that I did do and I have enjoyed working with for the past year, and I do recommend doing that particular exercise. So the last positive I have to talk about is in chapter 6, you are shown how to safely use psychedelics and aphrodisiacs to get into trance-like states to work with your animal spirits. So if you don't mind using substances, incenses, music, drum beats, things like that, this kind of takes it a step further because obviously you're working with psychedelics and aphrodisiacs. However, there's some great experiments in there that you can choose to do. One of the ones I chose to do was I drank wine and I ended up connecting with monkeys. And I found out that monkeys eat a certain type of fruit, which is deliberately to get them drunk. So monkeys came through because that drunken energy was there, and that helped me connect with the spirit of the monkey for a while. I also did a dive into working with chocolate, and I ate chocolate. I got myself into a trance-like state and I connected with the elephant. So it was interesting to see what animals came through based on the type of psychedelic or aphrodisiac I was working with. And I did do a number of experiments, and then a friend of mine did a completely, the same experiment, but with completely different ones. She actually did coffee coated raisins and worked with coffee for hers. And the badger actually came through for her, which was interesting. What was the other one she did? She did do another one. I'm sure it was the grasshopper that came through, but she did a few different experiments compared to me. And then we kind of compared notes. So it was really insightful and interesting. So I definitely recommend trying some of that. But obviously, you know, wherever the line is for you, don't cross it, guys. Don't do anything you're uncomfortable with. But there is an option in chapter 6 to work with psychedelics and aphrodisiacs to experiment with your animal guides. I chose to do that, like I said, with chocolate and alcohol. Oh, that was the other one. So she did it with coffee and she did it with cacao beans. That was the one I was forgetting. So my friend actually did it with chocolate, but she went with the sauce with actual cacao. So pure cacao, guys, whereas I did mine just generally with dark chocolate. We both had great experiences by practicing those techniques. The meditation was fantastic and worked a treat. The exercises were good. The journal prompts were insightful. And overall, this absolutely does what it's supposed to. It is a book that will help you build your own practice for animism and animal magic and working with any animal spirit that you want to work with. Now for the negatives. Looper updated this book in 2020 to include new material and topics. This included talks about global warming, pollution, cultural appropriation and environmental issues. While in itself this didn't bother me, what did bother me was that it was repeatedly mentioned throughout the book, which became irritating. I personally think this only needed to be discussed at the beginning of the book or as a singular chapter on its own, and it really didn't need to be brought up over and over throughout the book. And by the end of it, I felt like she was laying it on very thick. So that kind of was a negative for me. Lupa provides at the back of the book a list of Animal Magick books for you to consider reading. However, some of her reviews of those books were extremely negative. And rather than creating a list of books that included ones she didn't like and then ones she did, I think she actually took it a step too far. And I know I can be honest with my reviews, but some of the things she said, I think were actually just a little bit too, just a little bit mean. So yeah, so I would take some of what she says with a pinch of salt. There was actually books that she personally didn't like that I did. Let me see if I can find the list at the back actually, because I did, here we go. So I did kind of tick the ones that I was able, that I'd read and that I owned. So, you know, Ted Andrews' Animals Speak, Animal Wise, I actually have that one. So she says here as an example, these are pretty much considered to be classics on neo-pagan animal spirit work, at least as classic as something dated from the early mid-1990s can be. Both dictionaries cover a wide variety of animals, though most of the invertebrates are insects. Well written with some good exercises. Andrews, The Art of Shapeshifting, is a good supplement for magical shapeshifting. Highly recommend. So that was a positive review, but there is some books that she left very kind of negative ones. There is also some books that she recommends that are not available anymore. So there's this one up here that is just, you just cannot get it. It's not in print anymore. So you'd have to try and find it secondhand. There we go. This one not available, so that one was Familiars by Anna Franklin. Total Magic, which I actually have that one. Yeah, this one I didn't like, Animal Wisdom. So she says not to be confused with Palmer's book of the same title. It's one of my favourite dictionaries, largely because she includes a lot of environmental awareness amid the information. There's a good variety in her dictionary, though the book is primarily a dictionary of entries. Still, it's a good one to have. I actually didn't like that book. I had it, I owned it, I read it, and I sold it because it really, I found it very, very unhelpful. It was literally just a dictionary of animals. You can get that anywhere and you can literally Google animals online, so you really don't need a book like that. I would recommend one that actually is going to teach you something, things with practices and things to do in it, and things that will talk to you about the animals and help you connect deeply with the animals. So that wouldn't be one I recommend, but she actually did recommend it. So take a lot of this with a pinch of salt, I would say. But other than that, the book was absolutely fantastic. One of my favourite books of 2024. I thoroughly enjoyed reading this book. My friend thoroughly enjoyed it. We both got a lot out of it. This book for me easily is a 9 out of 10. It would have been a 10 out of 10 if she didn't go on and on about the global warming topics and environmental issues. A lot of that was littered throughout the book, and it was like it was being almost shoved down your throat a little bit. So that was something that I didn't like and just became irritating as I progressed through the book. But all of the practical stuff, mwah, chef kiss, absolutely fantastic, highly recommend. So 9 out of 10 from me. Fantastic book. I am looking forward to reading more work by Lupa. I think she's an absolutely amazing writer when it comes to this subject. So thank you so much to Lupa for writing this book and putting it out on the market. And I do hope that this review has helped you all decide if this is the right book for you or not. If you did enjoy it, remember to give me a thumbs up, click the bell, and YouTube will tell you when my next video comes out. If you'd like to offer light, love and support to my channel, you can do that through Amazon or my PayPal link. Both are provided. If you wish to contact me for any of my magical or divination services, you can do that through Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, X, or via email. And again, all the links are provided, guys. Thank you so much for watching till the end and supporting me. I do appreciate it. As always, take care of yourselves, and I will speak to you soon. Blessed be.